Imagine this for a moment. You walk into a room, and before you've even said a word, you can feel it. The energy shifts, people glance at you, whisper, and suddenly the atmosphere is just different. You don't have to be famous, you don't have to be rich, you don't even have to be the loudest person in the room. All it takes is one thing, your growth. The second you start elevating your life, becoming better, striving for more, something happens. People start talking. But here's the catch. They don't always say it directly. Jealousy rarely comes dressed in obvious clothes. No one walks up to you and says, "I'm jealous of you." Instead, they slip it into casual conversations. They lace it into jokes. They disguise it as advice. And if you're not careful, those words can creep into your mind and start planting seeds of doubt. Think about it. How many times have you been excited about a win, shared a dream, or celebrated a step forward, only to hear something that instantly made you second guess yourself? Words like, "don't get too comfortable," or "not everyone can do that," or "you've changed." At first, you brush it off, but later you start replaying it in your head, wondering if they're right. That's how jealousy works. It doesn't punch you in the face. It chips away slowly, hoping you'll shrink back down to the size that makes other people feel comfortable. The truth is, jealous people always reveal themselves, not through what they do, but through what they say. And once you learn to recognize their language, you'll never hear them the same way again, because what they say about you has nothing to do with your truth. It has everything to do with theirs. So let's break it down. Let's talk about the words jealous people use, why they say them, and most importantly, how you can protect your mind and keep moving forward, no matter what they throw your way. Because if you're hearing these words, it's not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're already on the right path. When people envy you, they rarely come out and say it. They won't walk up to you and confess, "I'm jealous of what you've accomplished." That would take honesty, vulnerability, and courage, qualities most jealous people don't have. Instead, they do something much more subtle, much more dangerous. They hide their feelings inside their words. Their jealousy leaks out in conversations, in little comments, in casual remarks that sound harmless on the surface, but carry a heavy weight underneath. And if you don't pay attention, those words can seep into your mind, shaping how you see yourself. The reason this is so important is because words are powerful. They can lift you up, or they can tear you down. And jealous people know this, whether consciously or unconsciously. They use words to plant doubt, to make you question yourself, to make you second guess the progress you're making. It's not always obvious, which is what makes it so dangerous. Sometimes it's disguised as humor. "Oh, must be nice to have all that free time." Other times it's packaged as concern. "I just don't want you to get disappointed if it doesn't work out." And sometimes it's wrapped in fake admiration. "Wow, you're so lucky things just work out for you." On the surface, these might sound like harmless comments, but listen closely. Underneath, they're not celebrating you. They're minimizing you. They're taking your effort, your struggle, your sacrifice, and reducing it to something smaller. Why? Because your success is uncomfortable for them. It's a mirror. Every time you rise, they're forced to look at their own stagnation. Every time you push forward, they're reminded of the things they haven't done, the risks they didn't take, the dreams they let go of. And instead of dealing with those feelings, honestly, they project them onto you through words. Think about the phrase, "you've changed." People rarely say that when you've changed for the worse. They don't complain if you've picked up bad habits or stopped taking care of yourself. No, what they mean when they say, "you've changed," is that you've grown. You've elevated. You've shifted in a way that makes them uncomfortable because you're no longer staying in the same place they are. That's jealousy talking, not truth. But if you're not aware, you might hear those words and think, maybe I am changing too much. Maybe I should tone it down. And that's exactly what they want, to pull you back down so they don't feel left behind. Or take the phrase, "you're just lucky." That's another favorite of jealous people. Instead of acknowledging the long nights, the sacrifices, the discipline, and the courage it took for you to get where you are, they erase it all with one word, luck. Because if they can convince themselves and maybe even convince you that what you've achieved was just luck, then they don't have to feel bad about not doing the work themselves. It's not that you worked harder, it's that you got lucky. Again, it's not about you, it's about them trying to protect their own ego. Jealous people also love to say things like, Don't get your hopes up. This is their way of projecting their own fears and failures onto you. They don't want you to dream bigger because your success will remind them that they settled. So they plant these subtle seeds of doubt in your mind, hoping you'll lower your expectations, hoping you'll play smaller, hoping you won't try at all. If you take their words to heart, you start to carry their fears as if they were your own. That's why recognizing these phrases is so important, because they are not your truth. They're someone else's limitations disguised as advice. Even the phrase "must be nice" carries weight. When someone says that, it's not a compliment. It's not genuine admiration. It's a passive-aggressive way of saying, "I resent what you have." It's not about you at all. It's about the gap between where they are and where they wish they could be. And instead of closing that gap through effort, they try to close it by pulling you down with words. The danger in all of this is that if you don't recognize the language of jealousy, you can start internalizing it. You start to think, maybe I am just lucky. Maybe I shouldn't aim so high. Maybe I shouldn't change so much. And before you know it, you're carrying someone else's insecurities as if they were your own beliefs. That's how jealousy works. It doesn't always attack your progress directly. It works through subtle comments repeated often enough until you begin to doubt yourself. But here's the truth. The words people use are reflections of what's inside of them. A secure person doesn't need to tear you down. A confident person doesn't feel threatened by your growth. A genuine friend doesn't minimize your wins. So when someone uses these jealous phrases, it's not really about you. It's about the emptiness, the regret, the fear, or the insecurity inside of them. Their words reveal them. They tell you exactly where they stand, and if you pay attention, you can spot them a mile away. That's why learning to recognize jealous language is one of the most powerful tools you can have. It allows you to separate truth from projection, encouragement from sabotage, love from envy. It protects your mind from absorbing negativity that was never meant for you in the first place. And most importantly, it gives you clarity. When you hear those words, instead of shrinking back, you'll know you're on the right path. Because jealousy doesn't chase mediocrity. It only shows up when you're doing something worth noticing. So the next time you hear those subtle comments, pause. Don't get defensive. Don't explain yourself. Don't waste energy trying to convince them. Just recognize it for what it is, jealousy revealing itself through words, and then keep moving because their words are about them, not you. And the fact that they even have to say them is proof that you're already doing something powerful. One of the most revealing signs of jealousy isn't in how people act, but in the words they choose. Jealousy is sneaky. It rarely comes out and announces itself directly. Instead, it slips into conversations, sounding like harmless comments, jokes, or even advice. But if you listen closely, you'll start to notice patterns. Certain phrases come up again and again, and once you recognize them, you'll never hear them the same way. They're like coded messages, revealing what someone really feels inside. These words may seem small, but they carry the weight of insecurity, envy, and sometimes even resentment. One of the most common phrases jealous people use is, "You've changed." On the surface, this might sound like an observation, but what it really means is that you've grown in a way that makes them uncomfortable. People rarely say this when you've changed for the worse. If you've picked up unhealthy habits, if you're slacking off, if you've lowered your standards, most people won't complain. But the moment you start elevating yourself, choosing better relationships, chasing bigger goals, taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, or financially, suddenly "you've changed" comes out. It's a phrase meant to make you doubt your own progress. They want you to question whether your growth is a bad thing, when in reality, it's proof that you're moving forward. What they're really saying is, "I miss the version of you that made me feel comfortable. I miss the version of you that didn't challenge me to look at my own life." Another phrase that reveals jealousy is, "You're just lucky." This one is dangerous because it completely erases your effort. It reduces all your sacrifices, late nights, risks, and hard work to a single word, luck. People use this phrase when they can't handle the reality of what it takes to succeed. Admitting that you worked harder, stayed disciplined, and pushed through obstacles would force them to confront why they haven't done the same. So instead, they convince themselves, and maybe even try to convince you that it was just fortune, chance, or timing. But deep down, they know the truth. They know that luck might open a door, but it's hard work that keeps you in the room. So when you hear you're just lucky, understand that it's not a reflection of reality. It's a defense mechanism. It's someone trying to protect their own ego by making your achievement seem less valuable. Then there's the subtle, don't get your hopes up. This phrase is one of the most poisonous forms of jealousy because it dresses itself up as concern. It sounds like they're looking out for you, but really, they're projecting their own fears and failures onto your dreams. Maybe they tried and failed. Maybe they never even had the courage to try. Either way, they want you to carry their doubts as your own. By telling you not to get your hopes up, what they're really saying is, I don't want to watch you succeed where I didn't. I don't want you to outgrow me. I want you to lower your expectations so I don't have to feel uncomfortable with your ambition. If you internalize this, you'll start dimming your own light, shrinking your own goals, just to match their level of comfort. That's exactly what jealousy wants, to keep you small enough so they don't feel left behind. One of the most passive-aggressive phrases you'll hear is, must be nice. Someone says you bought a new car, and they respond with, must be nice. You get a promotion, and they mutter, must be nice. On the surface, it sounds like an observation, but underneath, it's dripping with resentment. It's not about you. It's about the distance between your reality and theirs. Instead of asking how you did it or learning from your example, they choose to diminish your win with sarcasm. What they're really saying is, I wish I had what you have, but instead of celebrating you, I'll resent you for it. That tiny phrase reveals a heart full of comparison, insecurity, and unspoken envy. Another classic one is, not everyone can do that. Now, at first, this might sound like a statement of fact. And sure, not everyone can do what you do. But when it's coming from jealousy, it's not meant as admiration. It's meant as a subtle jab. It's their way of reminding you of the odds, of the risks, of the supposed impossibility of what you're chasing. It's a phrase designed to make you hesitate, to plant doubt, to make you wonder if you're the exception or just fooling yourself. But the truth is, the very fact that not everyone can do it is exactly why you must. Not everyone can endure the struggle, put in the work, or take the risks. That's what makes your journey special. But a jealous person doesn't want you to see it that way. They want you to second-guess yourself, so you never reach higher than they have. Sometimes jealousy doesn't even come as a direct phrase. It comes as a backhanded compliment. Things like, wow, I didn't think you'd actually pull it off. Or, I never expected you to be the one to make it. They frame it as surprise, but the undertone is clear. They never believed in you. And instead of admitting that their judgment was wrong, they mask their envy as shock. These words are designed to undermine your confidence, to remind you that in their eyes, you were never supposed to succeed. But here's the truth. Their disbelief says nothing about your ability. It only reveals the limits of their own vision. The key to all these phrases is understanding that they're not about you at all. They're about the person saying them. Every you've changed, every you're just lucky, every don't get your hopes up is really a reflection of their own insecurity. Their words are like a mirror. They show you the places in themselves they haven't healed, the dreams they abandoned, the risks they never took. If you take those words personally, you let their insecurity become your limitation. But if you see them for what they are, you gain power. You realize that every jealous phrase is actually confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. Because nobody wastes energy being jealous of someone going nowhere. So when you hear these words, don't shrink, don't defend yourself, don't try to argue or explain. Just recognize it, smile if you have to, let it roll off you, because their jealousy is not your burden to carry, it's their battle to fight. And the fact that they even feel the need to say those words to you is proof that you're already doing something they couldn't. When people throw these little phrases at you, it's easy to take them at face value. Maybe you tell yourself they're just being honest, or maybe you start to wonder if they're right. But the real question you need to ask is this: why do they say these things in the first place? Why do people feel the need to disguise their envy as advice, concern, or casual remarks? When you understand the psychology behind it, you stop personalizing it, you stop carrying their words as truth, and you start seeing them for what they are: projections of someone else's reality. At the root of jealousy is insecurity. People who are secure in themselves don't need to tear you down. They don't feel threatened by your growth, and they don't feel the urge to minimize your wins. But when someone feels small inside, when they feel like they're not enough, your success becomes a reminder of everything they're not doing. It shines a spotlight on the gaps in their life they'd rather not face. And instead of confronting those gaps, instead of saying, I need to work harder, I need to take risks, I need to do better, they try to dim your light. They use words as weapons, not because of who you are, but because of what you represent to them. When someone says, you've changed, it's not really about you changing. It's about them feeling left behind. Growth always creates distance. The moment you evolve, you outgrow old patterns, old habits, and sometimes old relationships. People who aren't willing to evolve with you feel abandoned. They don't want to admit they've stayed the same. So instead they put it on you. You've changed. What they really mean is, I don't like the fact that you're moving forward while I'm standing still. Saying it out loud gives them a sense of control, like they can guilt you into shrinking back into the version of yourself that kept them comfortable. When they say, you're just lucky, it comes from a place of protection. Admitting that you've worked harder, sacrificed more, and earned your success would mean they have to acknowledge their own lack of effort. And that's painful. It's easier to convince themselves that your success is an accident, that it happened by chance, rather than face the reality that they could have done the same if they had the discipline. That one word, lucky, becomes a shield. It protects their ego. It keeps them from having to ask the hard questions about their own choices. The phrase, don't get your hopes up, comes from fear. People who have failed, people who never tried, people who let their dreams die. They carry that disappointment with them. And instead of dealing with it, they project it onto you. They're not really worried about you failing. They're worried about reliving their own failures through you. If you chase your dreams and succeed, it forces them to face the truth that they gave up too soon. If you chase your dreams and fail, it confirms their belief that no one should even try. Either way, your journey becomes a mirror for their unresolved emotions. Their advice to keep your hopes low is not wisdom, it's fear talking. It's their way of making sure you never outgrow the box they've put themselves in. The phrase must be nice is rooted in resentment. Deep down, it's about comparison. They look at what you have and measure it against what they don't. Instead of celebrating your progress, they focus on their lack. That little sarcastic remark is their way of expressing bitterness without admitting it. Because to genuinely congratulate you would mean admitting they wish they had what you have. And for many people, that's too vulnerable. It's easier to roll their eyes, to throw out must be nice, and pretend they're joking than to confront the fact that they feel envy gnawing at them. When someone says, not everyone can do that, it's an attempt to anchor you to their reality. They can't see themselves doing what you're doing, so they assume it must be impossible for most people. And because they can't imagine it for themselves, they don't want you to imagine it either. Their words are a way of pulling you back to the level they're stuck at. If they can convince you that you're dreaming too big, that what you're aiming for is unrealistic, then they don't have to feel threatened by your courage. It's a defense mechanism that keeps them safe from facing their own limits. Flee, the common thread in all these phrases is this: jealous people aren't really talking about you. They're talking about themselves. Their words are confessions. Every time someone tries to downplay your growth, they're admitting that they feel left behind. Every time they call you lucky, they're confessing that they didn't put in the work. Every time they tell you not to get your hopes up, they're revealing that they're living with disappointment. Every time they say, must be nice, they're admitting that they compare their life to yours and feel like they're losing. This is why you can't take their words personally. If you internalize them, you'll start to live inside someone else's fears and insecurities. You'll start shrinking your dreams to make other people feel comfortable. And that's not your responsibility. Their jealousy is not your problem to solve. Their resentment is not your burden to carry. Their words are not your truth to live by. When you understand why they say these things, you gain freedom. You realize that jealousy is just a reflection, not a judgment. It tells you more about where they are in life than it ever tells you about where you are. And if anything, it's a confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. Because people don't waste energy being jealous of someone who's going nowhere. They only start speaking those words when they see something in you that threatens them, that inspires them, or that reminds them of what they could be doing. So the next time someone drops one of those little phrases into a conversation, pause for a second. Don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Don't try to convince them otherwise. Just smile, because now you know what's really happening. Their words aren't about you. They're about them. And instead of carrying that weight, you can let it go and keep walking your path. Because the truth is, if jealous people are talking, it means you're doing something worth talking about. The biggest mistake you can make when dealing with jealousy is to think you need to fight it. You don't need to argue with it. You don't need to prove yourself. And you don't need to defend every choice you've made. Because the truth is, jealousy isn't about facts. It's not about whether you deserve your success or whether your growth is valid. It's about feelings that belong to the other person, not to you. And the best way to protect yourself from the words of jealous people is to create a strong shield around your mind, a filter that decides what gets in and what doesn't. The first step is awareness. You can't protect yourself from something you don't recognize. Once you start to notice the phrases and patterns, once you start to see that those little comments aren't harmless, but are actually reflections of insecurity, you stop absorbing them. You stop confusing someone else's projection with your truth. When someone says you've changed, instead of feeling guilty, you hear the real message, I'm uncomfortable with your growth. When they say you're just lucky, you don't let it erase your hard work. You translate it into, I can't admit how much effort you've put in because it forces me to face my own lack of effort. Awareness turns their words into noise instead of a weapon. The second way to protect yourself is by mastering silence. Not every statement deserves a response. In fact, responding often gives jealous words more power. When someone tries to minimize your achievement and you rush to defend yourself, you've already stepped into their trap. You've given them authority over how you feel. But when you choose silence, you stay in control. You send a clear message. I don't need your approval and I don't need to explain myself to you. Silence is strength. It shows you're not shaken, you're not insecure, and you're not going to waste your energy on negativity. Another powerful form of protection is setting boundaries. This doesn't always mean cutting people off completely, though sometimes that may be necessary. Boundaries are about deciding how much access people get to your energy and your mind. If you know certain people always respond to your wins with sarcasm or backhanded comments, then maybe you don't share your victories with them anymore. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting your space. Not everyone deserves to be front row in your life. Some people only earn standing room in the back, and others don't belong in the building at all. The people you allow close to you should be people who celebrate your progress, not people who secretly hope you fail. Protecting yourself also means redefining what jealousy means to you. Instead of seeing it as an insult, start seeing it as confirmation. Jealousy is evidence that you're doing something right. Think about it. People don't get jealous of mediocrity. Nobody wastes time envying someone who isn't going anywhere. Jealousy only shows up when you're shining, when you're growing, when you're stepping into a space that others wish they had the courage to step into. So instead of letting those words break you down, let them serve as fuel. If they're talking, it means you're moving in the right direction. You also need to protect yourself by controlling your internal dialogue. The danger of jealous words isn't just that they're spoken, it's that they echo in your mind. Long after the conversation is over, you might replay those phrases. Maybe I am lucky. Maybe I shouldn't aim so high. Maybe I am changing too much. The real battle is not with the person who said it, but with the voice inside you that starts to agree with them. That's why you must train your inner voice to be louder than theirs. When you hear those doubts creeping in, replace them with truth. Remind yourself of the hours you worked, the sacrifices you made, the progress you've achieved. Remind yourself that growth requires change, that luck might open a door, but you're the one who walked through it. Protecting yourself means becoming your own loudest cheerleader, drowning out the noise with conviction. Another way to protect yourself is to practice emotional detachment. Understand that not every comment deserves to land in your heart. Imagine their words bouncing off you instead of piercing you. This doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. It means you develop resilience. You recognize that everyone is entitled to their perspective, but their perspective doesn't have to shape your reality. Jealousy will always exist. There will always be people who don't like what you're doing, who resent your progress, who talk behind your back. But their opinion is not your truth. Protecting yourself means refusing to carry their baggage. You also need to protect yourself by surrounding yourself with the right people. The best defense against negative voices is to amplify positive ones. When you have a circle of people who believe in you, who celebrate your wins, who encourage your dreams, the words of jealous people lose their power. They become background noise. But if you're isolated, if the only voices you hear are the critical ones, those words can start to sink in. Build a community that lifts you up. Because environment is everything. Who you surround yourself with will either protect your growth or poison it. Finally, protect yourself by keeping your focus forward. Jealous people want to distract you. Their words are designed to pull you into arguments, into self-doubt, into wasted energy. The best response is to keep moving. Stay so focused on your goals, your growth, your path, that you don't have time to dwell on negativity. Success itself becomes the strongest shield. When you keep winning, when you keep rising, when you keep proving through action what they tried to diminish through words, you make their jealousy irrelevant. The best protection is progress. At the end of the day, jealous words will always exist. They're not going away, because as long as you grow, someone will feel threatened. But you get to decide what those words do to you. You can let them break you, or you can let them bounce off you. You can internalize them, or you can translate them for what they really are. Confessions of someone else's insecurity. Protect yourself by choosing wisely. Protect yourself by building mental armor. Protect yourself by staying focused, staying grounded, and staying true to yourself. Because when you protect your mind, no amount of jealousy can stop your rise. There's a point you reach in life where you realize you can't control what people think, what they feel, or what they say about you. No matter how kind you are, no matter how genuine your intentions, someone out there will twist it, resent it, or try to bring it down. And most of the time, what you're dealing with isn't hatred, it's jealousy. That's why the most powerful move you can make is not to run from jealousy, not to fear it, but to transform it. Instead of letting it drain you, you learn how to turn it into fuel. That shift changes everything, because it takes negativity that was meant to break you and uses it to build you. The first step in turning jealousy into fuel is reframing what it means. Most people see jealousy as a sign that something is wrong, as if they've done something to provoke it. But the truth is the exact opposite. Jealousy is not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're succeeding. Nobody wastes their energy being jealous of someone who's stuck in the same place. Jealousy only shows up when you're moving forward, when you're doing something worth noticing. So when you hear those comments, when you feel that tension, remind yourself, this is proof that I'm on the right track. Instead of asking, why are they jealous of me? Ask, what about me is threatening enough that they feel the need to react? That one shift in perspective turns jealousy from an obstacle into a marker of progress. The second step is using jealousy as motivation. Think about it. Every time someone tries to downplay your success, every time they dismiss your efforts with words like lucky or must be nice, they're handing you energy. You can either let it weigh you down or you can channel it into drive. The more they doubt you, the more reason you have to prove, not to them but to yourself, that you're capable of more. Jealousy becomes like resistance in the gym. At first it feels heavy, uncomfortable, maybe even painful, but if you push against it, it builds your strength. The very thing that was supposed to hold you back becomes the force that pushes you further. Another way to use jealousy as fuel is to let it remind you of your why. When people envy you, what they're really seeing is the outcome. They see the wins, the results, the breakthroughs. What they don't see is the sacrifice behind it. They don't see the early mornings, the sleepless nights, the failures, the fears you had to overcome. That's why their words sting. They're trying to reduce your entire journey to a single moment. But instead of letting that frustrate you, let it remind you of everything you've already overcome. Every jealous comment should be a trigger that brings you back to your core purpose, to the reason you started, to the vision you're chasing. It becomes a way to anchor yourself, to say, I didn't come this far to let someone's insecurity derail me. Jealousy can also be a mirror that reflects how far you've come. Sometimes we get so focused on where we're going that we forget to acknowledge our own growth. But jealousy from others is often the first indicator that you've stepped into a new level. If people are reacting differently to you, if they're throwing subtle comments, if they're uncomfortable with your progress, it's because you've changed the landscape. You're no longer the same person you were. And that's powerful. Instead of letting their jealousy make you feel guilty for changing, use it as proof that your transformation is real. It's evidence that you're evolving, that you're not the same version of yourself who once blended in. That reminder can give you the confidence to keep pushing, even when the path gets hard. Turning jealousy into fuel also means letting it sharpen your focus. Jealousy can be distracting if you let it pull you into arguments, gossip, or proving yourself to people who don't matter. But when you decide that every jealous comment is a reminder to stay locked in, to keep your eyes on your own lane, it stops being a distraction and becomes a signal. Every time someone tries to minimize your progress, use it as a cue. Stay focused. Keep building. Don't get sidetracked. The more they talk, the more you work. The more they doubt, the more you double down. Their negativity becomes the background noise that drives your rhythm. There's also something empowering about letting jealousy validate your efforts. Success can be lonely. Growth can make you question whether you're doing the right thing, especially when it means leaving old versions of yourself and old relationships behind. But jealousy is proof that you're doing something significant. It's like friction. It only shows up when you're moving. Let their envy validate that your path is worth walking. If you were stuck in the same place, no one would care. The fact that they do means you're making waves, even if you can't always see them yourself. Perhaps the most powerful way to turn jealousy into fuel is to let it strengthen your resilience. Life is always going to have opposition. There will always be people who don't believe in you, who don't understand you, who resent you. If you crumble at their words, you'll never survive the bigger battles. But if you learn to take jealousy and transform it into determination, you build a kind of mental toughness that nothing can shake. You stop needing everyone to like you. You stop needing constant approval. You stop being fragile in the face of criticism. That resilience will carry you through far bigger challenges than someone else's envy. Finally, turning jealousy into fuel is about remembering that your goal is not to prove anyone wrong. It's to prove yourself right. Too many people waste their lives trying to silence critics, trying to show haters that they were mistaken. But that keeps you tied to them. True power comes when you rise. Not because they doubted you, but because you believed in yourself. Jealousy isn't a challenge to duel with. It's a background hum you learn to live with. Like static, you hear it, but you don't let it control you. You take the energy it carries and redirect it into your purpose, your vision, your next step. At the end of the day, jealousy will always be part of the journey. The more you grow, the more you'll encounter it. But instead of running from it, learn to use it. Let every jealous word remind you that you're moving in the right direction. Let it push you to work harder, stay focused, and remain grounded in your purpose. Let it fuel your confidence, your resilience, your determination. Because when you turn jealousy into fuel, you stop being at the mercy of other people's insecurities. You transform negativity into power. And that is how you rise, not in spite of jealousy, but because of it. At the end of the day, you have to remember this. Jealousy is never about you. It's about them. Their words are reflections of their own limitations, their own fears, their own insecurities. And yet, they try to project those onto you, hoping you'll shrink, hoping you'll play small, hoping you'll doubt yourself enough to stop moving forward. But here's the truth. You don't owe it to anyone to dim your light. You don't owe it to anyone to stay the same just so they can feel comfortable in their shadows. Every jealous comment you hear is confirmation that you're stepping into something bigger. Every phrase meant to cut you down is actually a sign that you've already risen. And every attempt to discourage you is proof that you are powerful enough to make people notice. So don't run from jealousy and don't fear it. Embrace it. Let it remind you that you're on the right path. Let it fuel your vision, sharpen your focus, and strengthen your resolve. Because in the end, jealous people can talk all they want, but their words have no power unless you give it to them. And you are far too strong, far too capable, and far too determined to let anyone else's insecurity decide the size of your destiny. So walk boldly, keep building, keep shining. And the next time jealousy shows up, don't shrink, smile. Because it means you're exactly where you're supposed to be.